Hey, what's up? I just wanted to make a video in response to the post that I made on Facebook a few days ago. And I started out talking about the things that I've gone through and the things that I've done and the things that I'm doing now. And there was just an overwhelming response to that. And I'm so appreciative of it. You guys, your posts, your comments on it, you shared it. And plenty of you were in my DMs. There were even people hitting me up on my Instagram about it. And I didn't even share it on my Instagram, but that comes from a lot of you sharing the post. And then your friends who I'm not friends with on social media saw it and sent messages to me. And it really resonated with a lot of people. And I'm so grateful for that. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking about where I'm going. Here we are, moving into the second quarter of the new year. And I was just kind of reflecting on, the things that I've gone through and where I'm at today and how grateful I am. I'm so grateful to God, because without him, I wouldn't be able to be here now. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to come through those things. And, some of the same questions were being asked of me in the DMs, how did I get through it? Did I go through therapy? Did it work? What did I do? How did I forgive people? How did I let go? And so I didn't go through therapy. I'm certainly not against therapy at all. I just didn't go through therapy. And those of you that are going through therapy, if it's working for you, then continue to do so. Those of you that maybe have thought about therapy and you haven't done it yet, I would encourage you to do so if you feel like you need someone to talk to. Um, for me, I think that um, I just never allowed myself to feel like a victim for very long. Now, I said for very long. There were certainly times when I did feel like a victim. There were certainly times when I, blamed myself for the sexual abuse that went on for years. I blamed myself. There were times when I blamed myself for the physical abuse, the domestic abuse. I blamed myself. There were times when I blamed myself, even though I was a kid, in bullying, with being bullied. I did. And it took me some deep down digging to realize that I wasn't to blame for those things. And most of the time, we're not responsible for what happens to us. Most of the time, we're not. But we are responsible for how we respond. And I was such a young kid when it came to the sexual abuse and the bullying. And so naturally, I think as kids do, they blame themselves. They think that it's their fault. Um, and so I just had to realize, and here's the other thing I'll tell you too that really, really helped me with it, because I would not talk about it. I would not talk about it. I would not talk about the sexual abuse. I would not talk about the bullying. I would not talk about the physical abuse. I wouldn't talk about it. And I think I thought that I was handling it because I wouldn't talk about it. And I don't mean, like I still haven't like had a full-fledged conversation about it, for each of those subjects, with a bunch of people, in the divorce and things like that. But what I learned that when I started speaking about it, saying me too, if you will, to borrow from the Me Too movement, but to just acknowledge that yes, I was bullied tremendously as a kid. Yes, I was sexually abused tremendously, for years as a kid. Yes, I was in a physically, violent domestic abuse relationship. And so when I started speaking about it, it was like, because they talk, people talk about the power of the tongue and you can speak life into things. And, I think maybe a part of that was why that thinking was why I didn't speak about it. But what I also, which I believe is true, you can really, your words are powerful, and your words are powerful in the sense of, for me, when I spoke about it, I could release it. I could release the shame. I could release the guilt. I could release the blame. I could release the anger, the resentment. Excuse me. I could release all of that. And I could release my feelings of feeling abandoned, I could release all of that. And you know what else I could do? I could forgive every single person involved. I know exactly who bullied me, for all those years. I know exactly who they are to this day. I know who they are. I know their names. Okay. They probably don't even know mine. I could forgive the sexual abuse. I could forgive those that were involved, um, I could forgive the person with the domestic abuse, the domestic violence. I could forgive. The emotional abuse. I could forgive. I could forgive that. But it wasn't until I started speaking about it, and I think when I spoke about it, like I said earlier, I was acknowledging that yeah, it's okay. Breathe. It's okay. It happened to you, but it certainly doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. It's just what happened, And you have to work through it. You have to find a way to work through it. And each person works through things like this in a variety of ways, and it shows up, and I'll tell you guys, I didn't realize the detriment that it really had, the detriment that it done, and the hold that it had on my life. For years later, I didn't realize that. And that's when I realized, ooh, I got to let this go. I got to let this go. I got to forgive these people. I got to forgive me first. I had to forgive me first. Because once I could forgive me and just let go of all that, like I said earlier, that shame and that blame, and it's like a weight lifts off your shoulders, and you realize that you're still here. You're not here to just exist, and I truly believe that God places no burden on you that you cannot bear. And you may not understand it. I certainly didn't understand. I still don't understand to a certain extent why I had to go through some of those things. Like, how can you understand sexual abuse? How can you understand that? But yet and still, I'm still here. Yet and still, I made it through. Yet and still, I made it through victoriously. Not just existing, but victoriously. Because here's what I've also learned too in these 57 years. I've learned that everything that I've gone through, everything, the bad, but also the great things, because I've gone through so many more great things in my life than those things that happened to me. So many more. Like, I couldn't even list those things in that Facebook post. I couldn't even list everything. That post would have been really, really long. There's so much that I have to be grateful for and so thankful for, that those things that happened to me are so small in comparison. So small, And so what I also realized too is that because I have gone through those things, I kid you not, God has always put someone in my life that needed to hear my story. It might have been a one-on-one conversation. It might have been from a stage where I had to share about the divorce. It has never failed. And I believe that when you go through these things, that God is going to do that for you too. He's going to put someone in your life that needs to hear your story, that needs to hear how you got through it, that needs to hear how you pushed through it. So enjoy the journey, understand the journey, write about the journey, take heed to the journey, and know that if you're going through any of those things, or even worse than what I've gone through and what I described, or what I posted, because I certainly didn't describe it, just know that it is going to pass. It is going to pass. But how you come out of that is completely up to you. Because like I said earlier, you're not responsible for what happens to you. 99% of the time, we're not responsible for what happens to us. We're just responsible for how we respond. So, hold your head up and put your shoulders back, even when you don't feel like it. Because it's not when things are going so super ridiculously amazing, joyful, and happy. That's not like you getting through things. It's when things are like funky and deep down dirty and nasty and ugly and horrendous and painful and just excruciating. There's just excruciating pain. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to get up out of that? No, it doesn't mean that you're just going to jump up and, oh my God, no. It may not be that. It may not be that. But you got to change your energy to it. You got to change the energy that you give to it. You got to change the attention that you give to it. If you're in a situation like this, get out of that situation. And I know it's easier said than done. And I'm not here as a professional licensed anything. Okay. But you need to surround yourself with people that love you, people that care for you, people that will help take you to the next level. Maybe it's people that have been through what you've gone through. You know, who's in your circle? See, when I kept all this inside, there was no one in my circle that I felt that I could trust with that information. Not my family, because I felt like they would be completely hurt and destroyed and devastated because they didn't know these things that I was going through, you know. But that isn't really the case. A lot of times those people that you feel like you have to hide it from are the ones, in most cases, that will be there to lift you up to heights that you didn't even know were possible. That would be there, give you tremendous support, you know. But that's up to you to define and up to you to decide, you know. But I'll tell you too, something else that really, really helped me is self-help books, personal growth, you know, that mental development, because we can be inside our own head. Oh my God, we can stay inside our own head, keeping everything inside. And guess what we end up doing? Our thoughts can really, really control us. Our thoughts can make us think things are worse than they are, or make us, you know, feel like we're going crazy because we're just listening to the voices in our head. And the voices in our head are just a combination of everything that we're gone through. You need to surround yourself with the thinking that outthinks you. You'll probably hear me say that several times. And sometimes it may only come in the form of a book. Maybe you don't have someone in your circle that you can trust to bring them into your circle and speak those words to them and let them know what's happening in your life or what you've gone through. You know, then maybe you have to get a mentor that's in a book. Maybe you have to be mentored by, you know, I mean, there's Eric Thomas, you know, there's so many people, like off the top of my head, that I can think of. I'm looking at my bookshelf now, you know, there's tons of books out there. You know, just go to the library, you know, look for the self-help section and find something that resonates with you. You know, there's podcasts that you can listen to, and you have to listen to them over and over and over again. I remember back in the 90s when I was just like devouring Tony Robbins infomercials, you know, because back then I couldn't afford the program that he was selling, and I would wait until about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would stay up and I would just watch. It was the same infomercial over and over and over and over again. And then I would start reading his books, and then eventually I could afford the program, and I would go to different seminars. You know, I was in a network marketing company, so that exposed me to so many different speakers and so many different forms of thinking, but I couldn't get it through my head. And I would get frustrated because I wasn't seeing the changes that I felt like I should be seeing. But the problem was the student wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. See, you've heard the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to have that breakthrough mentally. I wasn't ready to work on me. I was expecting outside forces to change. I was expecting, you know, at the time I was married, I was expecting him to change. I was expecting my kids to change and be certain. I wanted them to be a certain way. I wanted my husband to be a certain way. I wanted my surroundings, my environment to be a certain way, because I didn't want to deal with what was happening inside. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to face that. And so I had to learn that everything that you want, everything that you need, is all inside of you. That in order for you to become the best person that you can be, it starts with you. It's not going to come from the spouse. It's not going to come from the kids. It's not going to come from the grandkids. It's not going to come from that business. It's not going to come from your parents. It has to come from within you. And when you fix you, when you work on you, everything else always has its way of working itself out every single time. Things always work out when you focus on working on you first. And does that mean that you get rid of outside forces? No. It just means that it's not your job to worry about how someone else treats you. It's your job to make sure that you treat everyone the best way that you can. Now, what I'm saying is this. I'm not talking about right now if you're in a violent situation. I'm not talking about that. Or if you're in an abusive situation by any sorts. I'm not talking about that at all. That you need to get some help, and you need to get help immediately. But I'm talking about when you're carrying these burdens, when you're carrying these issues and these things that you're going through, is so easy to point the finger to somebody else. Trust me, I did it for a long time, and I refused to look down and realize that there are 3 fingers that are pointing back at me, which means that I should be checking myself 3 times more than what I'm checking somebody else. But it's easier to point the finger at someone else. But there were issues that I was dealing with that stemmed from the abuse that I just didn't want to deal with. I just didn't want to acknowledge. I didn't think that it affected me to the extent that it did affect me. And when I started acknowledging that, and I started realizing, you know what? I am better than this. I deserve better than this, because the Creator created me better than this. He didn't create me to be a victim. He didn't create me to be, carrying this burden inside of me. He didn't create me for that. He created me for greatness. And in order for me to find out what that greatness is, I had to let go of those things. I had to be open to letting go of those things, and letting go of those people, and letting go of those thoughts, letting go of the hurt, letting go of the insecurity, letting go of the blaming, letting go of the self-doubt, letting go of the horrible self-image, letting go of all of that. And oh my God, when you let go of all of that, there's just this sweet taste of joy that no one or nothing can disturb. It's incredible. I really think that is the greatest gift that our Creator gives us, is the sheer feeling of joy when you feel that connection, and it's the connection. It's a connection because you know where everything comes from, even though you may not understand why you've gone through those things, but you know that everything comes from Him, and that He sees everything. Nothing goes without being seen by Him. Nothing. And so therefore, you understand that you're much bigger than anything that you've ever gone through. You're so much bigger than anything that you're going through now. So you don't get high on the highs and just, you don't just get so high on the highs that you forget to take care of you on the inside, if that makes sense. You always got to take care of you on the inside. You always got to check you. Check you first before you check other people. Check you first. Because when you've gone through abuse, it's so easy to, if you haven't dealt with it, it's so easy to snap out. Snap back, or it's just so easy to snap, period, at other things, other people, other situations, other circumstances, because you don't want to deal with what's happening on the inside. Okay? So I hope that this helps someone, because my main point of this video was, like I said before, to just thank you guys so much for your comments. Thank you for sharing it, because it really, really, like I said, so many people were in my DMs because of that. And hopefully, that just helps other people realize that you are not what you've gone through, and you don't have to look like what you've gone through, and you can get through anything, absolutely anything. Okay, just get your mind right, stay focused, be grateful, count your blessings every single day. If it's just being grateful that you could take a breath in, if it's just being grateful that you can blink your eyes, if it's just being grateful that you can feel, taste, touch, and smell, if it's just that, if your surroundings are just so heavy that that's the only thing you can be grateful for, well, that's a lot. Be grateful for your capillaries and your arteries and the blood flowing through your body. Like, if we were just grateful for just our bodies alone and what they are able to do, the rest, everything else, that's just the cherry on top. Just having a sound mind and a body that moves, that allows you to be able to do whatever it is you can do, that alone is enough to be grateful to the Creator for. And so with that being said, again, guys, thank you so much, like I said, for sharing that post and just sharing your love. And let's just continue to help and support and love each other and continue to be grateful.